I, 48 feuds, just found out I'm pregnant, and I'm at my wit's end with my husband, 46 and his family. I never thought I'd be posting here, but I desperately need advice. This situation has spiraled out of control, and I feel like I'm losing myself in the process. My husband and I have been married for 15 years, and until recently, we've always had a good relationship. We both have demanding careers in finance. I'm a senior investment analyst, and he's a corporate finance director. We agreed early on that we didn't want children, focusing instead on our careers and enjoying our life together. We traveled, we pursued our hobbies, and we built a life that we both loved. But life has a way of surprising you, doesn't it? When I first realized I was late, I thought it was just perimenopause. At 48, it seemed like the most logical explanation, but after a week of feeling nauseous and exhausted, unable to get through my workday without multiple trips to the bathroom to throw up, I decided to take a pregnancy test. To say I was shocked when it came back positive would be an understatement. I must have stared at that little pink line for a good 10 minutes before I could even move. My mind was racing with thoughts of how this could have happened, what it meant for our future, and how on earth I was going to tell my husband. I spent the entire day in a daze, barely able to focus on my work. My colleague, Sarah, noticed something was off and asked if I was okay. I mumbled something about not feeling well, but I couldn't bring myself to share the news. It felt too surreal, too life-changing to put into words just yet. That evening, I sat on our bed, pregnancy test in hand, waiting for my husband to come home. When he walked in, he immediately sensed something was wrong. "Hey, what's going on? Are you feeling okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I took a deep breath and blurted out, "I'm pregnant." His reaction was mixed. At first, he just stood there, frozen, his briefcase slipping from his hand and thudding to the floor. Then, slowly, a range of emotions played across his face: shock, confusion, and then, to my surprise, a glimmer of excitement. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, showing him the test. He sat down heavily on the bed beside me, running his hands through his hair. "Wow," he breathed. "I mean, wow. This is unexpected." We talked long into the night about our options, the risks of pregnancy at my age, and how this would change our lives. I voiced my concerns about the health risks, the impact on our careers, and whether we were really prepared to become parents at this stage in our lives. "I'm scared," I admitted. "What if there are complications? What if I can't handle being a mother?" My husband listened, holding my hand. "I'm scared too," he said. "But also, I don't know, there's a part of me that's excited. Maybe this is our last chance at parenthood. Maybe it's meant to be." As we talked, I found myself warming to the idea. Yes, it was terrifying and completely unplanned, but there was also something thrilling about it. In the end, we decided to keep the baby. It felt like our last chance at parenthood, and despite my fears, I found myself looking forward to this new adventure. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of doctor's appointments and preparations. We decided to wait until after the first trimester to tell our families, wanting to be sure everything was okay before making the big announcement. Those weeks were actually quite nice. It was our little secret, something just for us to share and process together. But then came the day we announced the pregnancy to our families, and that's when the problems started. My parents were cautiously happy for us, expressing concern about the risks, but ultimately supportive. My mother offered to come stay with us after the baby was born to help out, which I appreciated. My husband's family, on the other hand, went into full-on celebration mode. We told them over dinner at their house, and the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. His mother burst into tears of joy, rushing to hug me so tightly I could barely breathe. His father clapped my husband on the back, already talking about teaching his grandchild to play baseball. His sisters squealed with excitement, immediately starting to argue over who would be the godmother. "Oh, this is wonderful news," my mother-in-law exclaimed. "I've been praying for this for years. I just knew God would bless you with a child eventually." I tried to smile, But her words made me uncomfortable. We'd never hidden our decision not to have children. Had she been hoping we'd change our minds all this time? My husband beamed with pride, soaking in his family's excitement. "We're due in about 6 months," he announced. We wanted to wait until we were sure everything was okay before telling everyone. That sparked a flurry of questions and unsolicited advice. My sisters-in-law started debating the merits of various birthing methods, while my father-in-law launched into a story about the day my husband was born. My mother-in-law grabbed my hands, looking at me intently. "Now, dear, you must be so careful," she said. "At your age, there are so many risks. You'll need to take it easy. No more of that stressful work of yours. And you'll need to eat right. I'll bring you some of my special pregnancy tea. It worked wonders for me." I nodded politely, feeling overwhelmed by her intensity. I caught my husband's eye, hoping he'd intervene, but he was deep in conversation with his father about setting up a college fund. That dinner set the tone for what was to come. At first, their enthusiasm was touching. But then they started showing up at our house, unannounced, all the time. It started with his mother dropping by with prenatal vitamins and pregnancy books. "I know you probably haven't had time to research all this," she said, dumping a stack of books on our coffee table. "I've bookmarked all the important parts for you." Then his sister came over with a bag full of maternity clothes. "These are from when I was pregnant with the twins," she explained. "I know it's a bit early, but you'll need them before you know it." Before I knew it, there was a constant stream of in-laws in and out of our houses, always staying for dinner, always having opinions about what I should eat, how I should exercise, how I should prepare for the baby. I tried to be polite at first. I smiled and nodded as they gave me unsolicited advice about everything from morning sickness remedies to the dangers of epidurals. But as the weeks went on, their visits became more frequent and more intrusive. One day, I came home from a particularly grueling day at work to find my mother-in-law in our kitchen, surrounded by grocery bags. "Oh, there you are," she exclaimed. "I hope you don't mind, but I noticed your fridge was looking a bit empty. I've brought some healthy foods for you and the baby. You really should be eating more leafy greens, you know." I stood there, keys still in hand, feeling like an intruder in my own home. "That's very kind of you," I managed to say. "But how did you get in?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, your husband gave me a key. For emergencies, you know. Now, why don't you sit down, and I'll make you a nice, nutritious dinner." I wanted to protest, to tell her that I was capable of feeding myself, that I didn't need her to take over my kitchen. But I was too tired, too overwhelmed to argue. So I sat at my own kitchen table, watching as my mother-in-law bustled around, chattering about the importance of folic acid and the dangers of caffeine. My husband, for his part, seems thrilled by all the attention. He encourages his family to visit, telling me how lucky we are to have such a supportive family. But he's not the one who has to cook and clean for them after a long day at work. He's not the one being constantly scrutinized and criticized for every little thing. Just last week, I had a glass of wine with dinner. You'd think I'd committed a cardinal sin. My sister-in-law gasped audibly, while my mother-in-law launched into a lecture about fetal alcohol syndrome. I tried to explain that my doctor had said an occasional glass of wine was fine, but they wouldn't hear it. "Better safe than sorry," my mother-in-law insisted. "You don't want to take any risks with your miracle baby." That phrase, miracle baby, has become a constant refrain. It's as if they think that because this pregnancy was unexpected, because I'm older, that somehow this baby is more special, more fragile than any other. And by extension, that I'm less capable of making decisions about my own body and my own pregnancy. The constant intrusion is affecting my work too. I used to pride myself on my focus and dedication, but now I find myself struggling to concentrate. My boss has noticed. She pulled me aside last week to ask if everything was all right. "You seem distracted lately," she said, her brow furrowed with concern. "Is the pregnancy causing problems? Because if you need to reduce your workload." I quickly assured her that I was fine, that I could handle my usual projects. But the truth is, I'm not sure I can. between the physical toll of the pregnancy and the emotional drain of dealing with my in-laws. I'm exhausted all the time. I've worked so hard to get where I am in my career, and the thought of losing ground terrifies me. To make matters worse, my doctor has expressed concern about my stress levels. At my last checkup, my blood pressure was elevated. At your age, a high-stress pregnancy can lead to complications, she warned me. You need to find ways to relax and take care of yourself. But how can I reduce my stress when the very people who are supposed to be supporting me are the ones causing it? The breaking point came last week. I had a particularly stressful day at work, dealing with a difficult client and a looming deadline. All I wanted was to come home, put my feet up, and relax. Instead, I walked in to find my husband's entire family in our living room, including his parents, both sisters, and their husbands and kids. The noise hit me like a physical force as soon as I opened the door. Kids were running around shrieking, the TV was blaring, and everyone was talking over each other. My mother-in-law was the first to spot me. "Oh, there you are," she exclaimed, rushing over. "We were starting to worry. You really shouldn't work such long hours in your condition, you know." I stood there, frozen, as she started fussing over me, telling me I looked pale and asking if I was eating enough protein. My sister-in-law chimed in, insisting on showing me the stack of parenting books she'd brought over. "I've highlighted all the important parts," she said proudly. "We can go over them together." And my husband? He just beamed at me from his spot on the couch and said, "Isn't it great to have so much support?" I felt like I couldn't breathe. The room was too loud, too crowded, too much. Without a word, I turned and fled to our bedroom, locking the door behind me. I sank down onto the bed, my whole body shaking. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand that everyone leave, but I felt paralyzed. There was a soft knock at the door. "Honey?" my husband called. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "I'll be out in a minute," I managed to say. When I finally composed myself and came out, I found my husband in the kitchen, happily chatting with his mother as she prepared dinner. The rest of the family was still in the living room, acting as if this was their home, not ours. I pulled my husband aside, into the relative quiet of the laundry room. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice low. He looked confused. "What's wrong? Aren't you happy to see everyone?" I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. "I appreciate that your family is excited about the baby," I began. "But this is too much. I can't handle having them here all the time, especially not without warning." He frowned. "They're just trying to help. You should be grateful for all this support. Many women would kill to have such a caring family." His words felt like a slap in the face. Grateful? For having my home invaded, my boundaries ignored, and my feelings dismissed. I tried to explain how overwhelmed I felt, how the constant intrusion was affecting my work and my health, but he just shook his head. "You're overreacting," he said. "It's just because of the pregnancy hormones. You'll feel differently once the baby is here, and you see how much we need their help." I stood there, stunned, as he patted my shoulder and went back to his family, leaving me alone in the laundry room. In that moment, I felt more alone than I ever have in our marriage. Now, I'm at a loss. I love my husband, and I want to be excited about this pregnancy. But I feel like I'm drowning in other people's expectations and demands. Every conversation about the baby turns into a family discussion. Every decision feels like it's being made by committee. I'm starting to resent not just his family, but him as well. I've tried talking to my own parents about this, but they keep telling me to be patient, that it's natural for families to get excited about a baby. They suggest I try to embrace the support, but they don't understand how suffocating it feels. I'm starting to have doubts about everything. Did we make the right decision in keeping this baby? Can our marriage survive this? Am I cut out to be a mother if I can't even handle a few months of family interference? I know I should be focusing on the joy of impending motherhood, but instead, I'm fantasizing about running away. I've even looked up flights to destinations where no one would find me. I know it's ridiculous, but the idea of escaping all this pressure is so tempting. Last night, lying awake at 3 a.m. I found myself wondering what would happen if I just left. Would my husband even notice? Or would he be too busy with his family? Would anyone understand why I felt I had to go? I need advice. How do I set boundaries with my husband's family without causing a rift? How do I get my husband to understand and support my needs? Is it normal to feel this overwhelmed? Or am I overreacting? Please, any advice would be appreciated. I feel like I'm losing myself in all of this, and I don't know how to find my way back. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and things have only gotten worse. I appreciate all the advice and support from my previous post. Unfortunately, trying to implement your suggestions led to an unexpected explosion. Last weekend, we attended a small family dinner at my in-laws' to discuss baby shower plans. It turned out to be a gathering of about 20 people, including extended family. The constant barrage of unsolicited advice and belly-touching finally made me snap. I shouted at my husband's aunt to not touch me, causing a scene. I tried to explain my need for space and respect, but it quickly devolved into chaos. My mother-in-law cried. My sisters-in-law called me ungrateful, and my husband just stood there silently. Unable to take it anymore, I left and drove to my parents' house. My parents were supportive when I explained everything, the intrusion, stress, and my husband's dismissive attitude. They were shocked and offered to let me stay with them for a while. When my husband called that night, he was more concerned about the embarrassment I'd caused than my feelings. I explained my need for time away, but he accused me of overreacting due to pregnancy hormones. Our conversation ended in frustration and anger. I've been at my parents' house for 5 days now. My husband and I have barely spoken. He only texts to check on the baby. My parents are trying to mediate, but my husband doesn't seem to be listening to their attempts to explain my perspective. The distance has helped reduce my stress, and my blood pressure has improved. However, I'm at a loss about what to do next. I love my husband, but I'm questioning if we can work through this. With the baby coming, we need to figure something out soon. How do I get my husband to really hear me? Is there any way to salvage the situation with my in-laws, or should I consider more drastic measures? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 2. It's been a week since my last update, and the situation has unfortunately deteriorated further. Thank you all for your support during this difficult time. 2 days ago, I received a call from my mother-in-law. Initially conciliatory, the conversation quickly turned sour. She insisted their involvement was crucial for the baby's well-being, given my age. When I explained how their interference was causing me stress, she accused me of being selfish. "This isn't just about you anymore," she said. "You're carrying our grandchild. We have a right to be involved." The call ended with my in-laws threatening legal action to ensure their grandparental rights. I was left shaken and in tears. The next day, my husband came to see me. Rather than offering support, he seemed more concerned about appeasing his parents. He suggested I apologize and try harder to get along with them. "Can't you just let them be more involved?" he pleaded. We argued for what felt like hours. He kept insisting that I was overreacting, that everything would be fine if I just accepted his family's help. He couldn't understand how their behavior and his lack of support were affecting me. Finally, exhausted and heartbroken, I said, "I want a divorce." My husband stared at me in shock. "You don't mean that," he said quietly. "It's just the hormones talking." "No," I interrupted. "It's not the hormones, it's me. You've made it clear that your family's wishes are more important than my well-being. I can't live like this anymore." He left shortly after, looking lost and confused. I know this decision will have huge ramifications, but I feel it's my only option. I can't bring a child into this toxic environment. I've contacted a lawyer to discuss my options. The prospect of being a single mother is terrifying, but staying in this marriage seems even more frightening. My parents are supportive, though worried. They've offered to let me stay with them as long as I need. I'm grateful, but I know I'll need to find a more permanent solution soon. I'm scared about the future, but for the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe. The road ahead will be difficult, but I have to prioritize my health and my baby's well-being. Any advice on navigating divorce while pregnant would be appreciated. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How did you handle it? Thank you all for your continued support. It means more than you know. Update 3. It's been 3 days since I decided to pursue a divorce. After speaking with a lawyer, I officially started the proceedings yesterday. It was difficult, but necessary for my well-being and my unborn child's. Surprisingly, my husband showed up at my parents' house last night, seeming genuinely remorseful. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I realize I've let you down. I should have supported you more." We talked for hours. He admitted focusing too much on keeping peace with his family and neglecting my needs. He also confessed being terrified of fatherhood, using his family's involvement as a crutch. I appreciated his honesty, but made it clear his actions had deeply hurt me and broken my trust. While willing to consider counseling, I'm still proceeding with the divorce for now. We discussed custody, agreeing that for the first few months after birth, the baby would primarily stay with me, with him having liberal visitation rights. He promised to set boundaries with his family, but I'm cautious. Actions speak louder than words. My recent checkup showed stabilized blood pressure. The doctor emphasized reducing stress as I enter the 3rd trimester. I'm still at my parents' houses, which has helped clear my head. My mom has been incredibly supportive. My husband told his parents about the divorce, citing their behavior as a significant factor. They're processing the news. I'm bracing for potential backlash, but there's silence for now. I'm focusing on my health and preparing for the baby, attending prenatal yoga and a support group for expectant single mothers. While proceeding with the divorce, I'm open to reconciliation if my husband demonstrates real change. My priority remains my and my child's well-being. Thank you all for your support. Any advice on co-parenting or rebuilding trust would be appreciated. Update 4. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. Thank you all for your continued support and advice. The divorce proceedings are moving forward slowly. My lawyer and I are working on the separation agreement, including custody arrangements. It's emotionally draining, but I'm focusing on what's best for the baby and me. My husband and I have tentatively agreed on a co-parenting plan. For the first year, the baby will primarily live with me, with my husband having regular visitation. We'll reassess as the child grows older. My husband has been surprisingly cooperative, attending parenting classes and suggesting couples counseling. While I'm not ready to reconcile, I appreciate his efforts. My in-laws have been quiet lately. My husband claims he's discussed boundaries with them. I'm cautiously optimistic, but prepared for potential issues as the birth approaches. At work, I finally talked to my boss about my situation. Her response was unexpectedly supportive. We've arranged a flexible schedule for my last trimester and early postpartum period, including remote work and a gradual return after maternity leave. This has led me to reconsider my career goals. I'm thinking about scaling back for a better work-life balance once the baby arrives. It's a big change from my previous all-work mindset, but it feels right. Now in my 3rd trimester, the reality of motherhood is setting in. I'm attending birthing classes and setting up the nursery at my parents' house. It's bittersweet doing this alone, but also empowering. My health has improved since reducing contact with my in-laws. My blood pressure is stable, and the baby is developing well. The doctor is monitoring me closely due to my age and stress levels. I'm nervous about the birth and single motherhood, but also excited to meet my baby. I found a great support network, including a group for single expectant mothers. Despite progress, I sometimes doubt my decisions. But then I remember the stress of my marriage and know that a peaceful, healthy parent is what my child needs most. Any advice on preparing for single motherhood or balancing career and a new motherhood would be appreciated. Update 5. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I'm now just 2 weeks from my due date. Some unexpected developments have occurred that I want to share. First, thank you all for your advice and support. Your words have been a source of strength during this challenging time. The most surprising change has been in my relationship with my husband. Last week, we met to discuss the upcoming birth. I was apprehensive, but agreed. To my surprise, he seemed genuinely remorseful and reflective. He apologized for his past behavior and lack of support, expressing a desire to do better and be present for the birth. I was skeptical, but he's been making real efforts to change. He's attending therapy, both individual and group sessions for expectant fathers. He shared insights about his fears of fatherhood and how he's working to overcome them. We discussed the birth plan, and he was attentive and supportive of my wishes. While I'm not ready to fully reconcile, I've agreed to let him be present for the birth. It feels right for our child, and I'm cautiously optimistic about co-parenting with this more self-aware version of my husband. There's also been a shift with my in-laws. My mother-in-law reached out, apologizing for their overbearing behavior. We had an honest conversation about boundaries and respect. They've promised to be more considerate of my needs and respect our parenting decisions. As for the pregnancy, I'm feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. The nursery is ready, and I've finished my birthing classes. My doctor is pleased with my progress, though they're monitoring me closely due to my age. I'm nervous about the birth, but I feel more prepared and supported than before. Having my husband's support, even if our relationship is uncertain, has been a relief. There are still moments of doubt, but I'm trying to focus on the present and our baby's imminent arrival. Thank you all for being on this journey with me. I'll update after the birth. Wish me luck. Update 6. 2 weeks ago, I gave birth to my beautiful baby boy. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. The birth was intense but amazing. My husband was there, surprisingly calm and supportive. After 18 hours of labor, our son was born healthy. Holding him for the first time, all the past stress seemed to fade away. My husband cried when he first held our son, promising to be the best father he could be. I saw a glimpse of the man I fell in love with years ago. In the hospital, my in-laws visited and respected my boundaries, which meant a lot. Now at home, we're settling into a new routine. My husband is on paternity leave, fully involved in caring for our son. His dedication has been unexpected but welcome. Our relationship is still complicated. We're not back together romantically, but we're developing a new partnership as co-parents. We're communicating better and putting our son's needs first. My in-laws continue to respect our boundaries, calling before visiting and offering genuine help. It's a significant improvement from their previous behavior. The divorce proceedings are on hold as we navigate this new phase. We've agreed to continue couples therapy. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, open to the possibility of reconciliation if we can maintain this positive dynamic. I'm on maternity leave, considering a part-time arrangement when I return to work. There are challenges. Sleep deprivation is real, and balancing the baby's needs with my recovery isn't easy. But my support system, including my parents, friends, and even my husband and in-laws, has been invaluable. Sometimes I worry about providing a stable environment for our son, but his smiles fill me with hope and determination. To those in similar situations, take it one day at a time. Trust your instincts, set boundaries, and lean on your support system. Thank you all again. While the future is uncertain, I'm facing it with more confidence and hope than before.